Hi, I'm sorry. I thought that Mary Jo was going to start this whole thing, but I'm getting furious chats that I'm supposed to start it. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ellen Fisher. I'm the Vice President for Research here at UNM, and I'm really pleased to just provide a couple of opening remarks that essentially this is a really great opportunity that we have brought to campus, an NEH program officer, and Mary Jo will be introducing her in just a moment, but I'd like to just say a couple of things about the idea that um, this is just one in a number of different things that we are working on in the OVPR to think about how we can expand and grow the research enterprise at UNM. And in particular, we're really interested in finding opportunities for faculty, regardless of what field they're in, to go after external funding to maybe provide different and new avenues for them to have support for their research. And also, this is really another opportunity for us to build skills within our faculty. And I think Mary Jo is going to maybe speak to that a little bit more, in that we are looking for ways that we can support faculty in grant writing and going after different opportunities that perhaps they have not previously thought about. And that will just build skills in a variety of different ways. The other thing that we're hoping to kick off with some of this, including the workshop for today, is to build relationships and teams. And so thinking about who else is participating in this particular workshop, that this webinar, that you might be able to partner with in the future or build a writing group with, or again, we're thinking of this as a kickoff for a larger program that we'll be having holding in the spring. And again, I think that as part of our We Are One faculty success program, we're really thinking about ways that we can help faculty discover new avenues or directions for their research and scholarship, and thinking about things in ways maybe that they haven't, that the pandemic has maybe said, let's go in a new direction or a different direction. And so to help with that kind of a, how do you reinvigorate what may have stalled out a little bit during the pandemic. And we're hopeful that this will be a great way to think about it for our colleagues within the humanities. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mary Jo, and we can go from there.
Thanks very much, Ellen. And I'm pleased to see virtually everyone this afternoon, and thanks for joining us. Before we start the webinar, just a couple of logistics. If you have any questions or for our speaker, you can use the chat or the Q&A. I will be monitoring those, and there are breaks within the talk where we can pause for questions, and then we'll have time at the end for our Q&A session. And at that point, when we're done, I'll talk a little bit briefly about what Ellen was mentioning. We are looking at this as sort of a soft kickoff for a program, an initiative working with our Faculty Research Development Office and our Grand Challenges to have a year-long program to support faculty in developing ideas and developing proposals for external funding in the humanities and social sciences. So a little bit more about that at the end. So with that, I do want us to get right to work. So I'm very pleased that we have with us Dr. Suha Kudsiye. She has a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Toronto and specializes in examining cross-cultural encounters between East and West, travel accounts, ethnography, and historiography. She's a program officer at NEH in the Division of Research and the team lead for documenting endangered languages fellowships, a program run in collaboration with the National Science Foundation. Prior to joining NEH, she was an assistant professor teaching humanities, world literature, and language courses at the City University of New York. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome you, and I'm going to turn it over to you so you can get started. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for Ellen and Mary Jo for your warm welcome. And thank you for Grace and Natalie for their help with setting up the webinar. Thanks also for the audience for joining me today. I appreciate that. I would like to first share my screen to go to the PowerPoint. I think you can see it. Let's see. I'm trying actually to set it in the. Sorry, I'm trying to see. Oh, okay. Here it is. All right, the slides. Okay. So actually, yesterday I spent, well, this week I spent a good part of my time trying to match the colors of the slides with the standard colors of UNM. And may I say you have beautiful colors, silver and deep red. So that's nice. So here you have my name, Suha Katsia, and you have my email and phone number. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or need help after the webinar ends. So today's program, today's agenda is divided into 4 segments. In part 1, I will introduce you to NEH and its 7 divisions. In part 2, I will give you an overview of funding opportunities at NEH, especially the fellowships and institutional grants offered by the Division of Research. In part 3, I will share tips and suggestions for preparing stronger applications. The last part is the Q&A, when I will answer your questions and queries. By the way, when I am sharing the slides, I won't be able to see the chat, but Mary Jo will help me if there is anything urgent, or if there are, let's say, questions that need to be answered during the presentation. And the presentation time is approximately 35 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on how things go. Hopefully, we will proceed at a normal speed. So what is the NEH? The NEH is a federal agency founded in 1965 to support all areas of humanities through project-based grants and fellowships using a merit-based peer review evaluation system. And when I say humanities, this covers actually cultural studies, languages, literatures, histories, or history, the discipline of history, performing arts, music, digital humanities to some extent, and ethnography, anthropology, science, humanistic sciences, environmental studies from a humanistic perspective, and also interdisciplinary studies. NEH is funded by you, the taxpayers. So when you're looking for the most appropriate grant for your project, it can be helpful to consider the purpose and goals for each division. We have 7 divisions, different divisions at the NEH. Challenge grants, for example, aims at helping cultural institutions meet changing needs by funding their building renovations or developing new digital infrastructure. Preservation and Access funds projects that catalogs, preserves, and makes primary sources accessible for scholars and the public. Those sources include films, letters, and early printed books. Digital Humanities helps with developing new tools and platforms that make humanities research and dissemination possible in the digital world. Public programs, grants, produce documentaries and other products aimed at the general public. Education programs fund pedagogical materials and teacher training. Every state has a State Humanities Council, which is funded through the NEH's Fed-State partnership. The New Mexico Humanities Council funds community projects such as the project on cemetery stories held yesterday on Tuesday, November 2nd. Last but not least is research, my division. It supports scholarly research like single scholars and collaborative teams. One of the main differences between the divisions is the audience served by the funded project. When you're wondering which division to look to for funding, consider who your audience will be and who will benefit most from your project. Are you aiming for K-12 or college level students? That's education. Do you want to reach a wide public audience with a new museum program? Then you need to check the grants offered by public programs. Are you aiming to produce a scholarly monograph or embark on a fieldwork research project? That would be research. The Division of Research is one of the largest divisions at the NEH. It supports many activities such as travel for research, visiting the archives, fieldwork, writing and editing, collaborating with colleagues, preparing scholarly editions and translations, documenting endangered languages, and organizing seminars and workshops to discuss new ideas. The division funds projects that will lead to publishing monographs, academic articles, scholarly translations, scholarly editions, scholarly digital products, and similar scholarly outcomes. So there are two types offered by the Division of Research. We have from individual fellowships, and then we have institutional or what is known as collaborative programs and grants. So individual fellowships support scholars pursuing projects that embody exceptional research, rigorous analysis, and clear writing. Applicants don't need to be affiliated with an academic institution. Adjuncts, independent, and retired scholars are welcome to apply. The amount of funding is fixed for those fellowships. Successful applicants receive $5,000 per month, regardless of their travel, archival, or per diem expenses. The period of funding varies depending on the fellowship. I will provide more details about this point in a minute. Institutional grants are collaborative grants. They are submitted by US institutions on behalf of a team of scholars who will collaborate on a scholarly project. The project director must be affiliated with the institution, which must be a government, education, or nonprofit institution. These are large grants, and a detailed budget is required. Funding varies between $7,500, sorry, not 7,500, $75,000 to $100,000 per year for up to 3 years. So if you're applying for funding for 1 year, it will be $1,000. If you're applying for funding for 2 years, it will be $200,000 and so on. Before you start drafting your NEH application, consider if you're eligible to apply. The eligibility criteria for individual fellowship awards are, number one, it's open for US citizens residing anywhere in the world and non-citizens who have spent at least the last 3 years in the US. The second criterion is it is open for individuals who are affiliated or unaffiliated. Independent scholars and adjuncts can certainly apply. It is also open for candidates who are PhD candidates, provided that they have fulfilled all the requirements for their degrees and they're just waiting for the conferral letter by their institution. And the conferral letter, so they have finished all the requirements by the application deadline, and they're just waiting for the conferral letter. For institutional grants, we are looking for nonprofits. And this means nonprofit includes libraries, museums, history centers, or educational institutions, government bodies, or tribal governments. Collaborations may include non-US scholars. However, it is important to pay attention to the 50-50 ratio of both teams. In other words, half the scholarly team must be in the US and affiliated with non-profit institutions. Of course, we can have more, the ratio could include a higher number of US scholars, that's fine. But if you're including non-US scholars, then the ratio cannot exceed 50-50%. And the funding cannot go to foreign institutions. That's why we have the project director must be affiliated with a US institution. Individual fellowships and summer stipends support scholars pursuing projects that embody exceptional research and clear writing. The fellowships program is by far our largest and most popular program. We average about 1,200 applications a year and award about 80 awards per year, which means this program has about a 70% funding ratio. The fellowship funds full-time research for anywhere between 6 and 12 months at $5,000 a month. Full-time means you may not, for example, teach a class while holding this fellowship. The summer stipends is another popular program, and we receive between 850 applications to 1,000 applications annually. Applicants don't need to be affiliated. However, if they are affiliated with an institution, they need first to be nominated by their institution to apply for this program. Each institution can nominate 2 summer stipends per year, not more. So, for example, if I teach and work full-time at UNM, then I am affiliated with the institution. Therefore, I need to submit my application to the nominating committee at UNM. And if my application is accepted, I can then submit it to NEH and append a letter from my department chair or dean attesting that my project was nominated by the institution. The funding ratio for this program is about 10%, slightly higher than the fellowship program. The stipend funds full-time research for 2 summer months at the rate of $5,000 a month. As the name indicates, funding cannot be switched to other months of the year. The stipends cover only 2 summer months. Public Scholars Program is meant to bridge the gap between the scholarly community and the general public. Scholars who work on projects that will be of great interest to the American public are encouraged to apply for this grant. Experienced journalists are also welcome to apply, especially if they need to take time off for research. The style of writing must appeal to a broad audience. It should be lucid and free from academic jargon. The publishing presses must also specialize in publishing public books. There are restrictions on those 3 types of fellowships. Awards cannot be used to write or publish textbooks or for curriculum development. Books for children, guidebooks, or self-help books are also not fundable. They cannot fund, also those grants cannot fund artistic works such as creative writing or memoirs. For this, you need to apply for NEA, our sister agency, the National Endowment for the Arts, but not NEH. Every notification of funding opportunity, this is a document that you will see and I'll talk about shortly, has a list of restrictions. So every grant offered by NEH has a notification of funding opportunity, or what is known as NOFO. That's the acronym for the document. Please check the list of non-fundable projects and funding restrictions before you start writing your application. Because the 3 fellowship programs are quite popular, we cannot read drafts in advance of the submission deadline. So these for these 3 fellowships, we don't have a deadline to submit drafts. But for other fellowships and other programs, we might be able to do that. And I will indicate which ones you can submit an early draft for. In many ways, awards for faculty are similar to the 3 fellowship sisters. The amount of funding is $5,000 per month, and the fellowship can last between 6 to 12 months. They are nevertheless different in that affiliation to an HBCU institution is required. So in that case, adjuncts, independent scholars, and retired faculty members may not be able to apply unless they are granted approval by the institution. And they are formally affiliated or considered to be affiliated by the institution. HBCU stands for Historically Black College or University. Similar programs that are federally designated. We have similar programs serving for institutions serving Hispanic communities and also institutions serving tribal communities. UNEM is federally recognized as a Spanish-serving institution, and a large number of faculty do apply for this program, and many of them have received faculty awards. We are happy to provide feedback to applicants for this award, provided that the applicants submit their drafts before the draft deadline elapses. Applicants must bear in mind that feedback is non-binding and it does not reflect how the panelists will evaluate an application. In contrast to the previous 3 programs, faculty members are allowed to pursue their research part-time when they are on the fellowship. They are also allowed to break the period of performance, that is to say, to hold the award for 6 months, teach for a semester, and after that, they can return to their research. In addition to the 4 mentioned fellowship programs, NEH runs 3 other fellowships in collaboration with other agencies. DLI DEL fellowships program is run in conjunction with NSF, the National Science Foundation, and the program funds projects that document endangered languages. NEH Mellon Fellowships fund digital projects that form an integral part of a research project. Those projects must be interpreted with a digital component. Please note that this fellowship is not meant to fund setting up a digital archive or developing an online tool. If this is the purpose of your project, you need then to look at the grants offered by the Division of Digital Humanities, not research. Applicants may submit a draft of their proposal for the DLI and Mellon Fellowships by the due date for draft submission. And for this, you need to check the respective webpage. We will be happy to provide applicants with feedback with the caveat that we cannot predict the panelists' comments or ratings. But generally speaking, the applicants who submit drafts benefit from the feedback or find it helpful. The last one, last fellowship mentioned here or listed here is the Japan Fellowships, which supports research on modern Japanese society and political economy, Japan's international relations, and US-Japan relations. We unfortunately cannot review drafts for this program. Awardees must focus on their research full-time when they are on fellowship, and the period of funding can be from 6 to 12 months. The funding for the last 3 fellowships is fixed at the rate of $5,000 per month, just like the other fellowships. I searched our database for recent applications and grants and awards that were given to UNM faculty members. And here you have a sample. So here is a short list of some of UNM applicants who received fellowships by the Division of Research. So I did not include awards given by other divisions at the NEH. The list is not comprehensive. You know, if I wanted to include everyone and all grants, I would have to cover, you know, I would have to use several slides. You've done actually a wonderful job when it comes to being awarded grants, so congratulations. This is great. Colleagues who were awarded NEH awards are actually your best source of information about preparing strong applications. And like Ellen said, you know, meet with them, try to meet with your colleagues and set up, let's say, groups for discussions of your research and to look at drafts of your applications and so on. So get to know those colleagues, invite them for coffee, share with them a draft of your application, then ask them for their feedback. And I'm pretty sure they'll be happy to talk to you about their NEH experience and also to share with you what they've done, what they did during the fellowship, and talk, you know, you can discuss your research topics and outcomes. So, and you probably might recognize some of the names anyway. So this slide recaps some of the details I mentioned about individual fellowships, such as whether or not you can submit your draft for feedback. As you can see, awards for faculty is the only fellowship that offers you the chance to submit a draft early, so that you can revise and resubmit your application by the due date. The table also lists submission deadlines for applications and the URL, the website for each fellowship program. Similarly, this slide summarizes basic information about the joint fellowship. You'll notice that you can submit a draft of your application for the DLI, DEL, and Mellon programs, but not for the Japan Studies program. You can also see submission deadlines for applications and the website for each program. Next, I will move to discuss the institutional, and by institutional, I mean collaborative grants. These are large grants that involve several scholars working on a major project. So institutional grants support sustained collaboration between at least two or more scholars. Collaborators may be drawn from one or more institutions. International collaboration is encouraged, but the project director must be based at a US institution. And project teams must include an equitable balance of scholars based at US institutions and scholars based outside the US. The Scholarly Editions and the Scholarly Translation Program funds the research of collaborative teams who are editing, annotating, and translating foundational humanities texts that are vital to learning and research, but are currently inaccessible or are available only in inadequate editions or translations. The texts typically have a significant literary, philosophical, and historical materials, but other types of work, such as musical notation, may also be the subject of an edition. The maximum amount of funding for this grant is $300,000 for 1 to 3 years. As I mentioned earlier, if you're applying for 1 year, then the maximum is $100,000. If it's 2-year funding, then it is $200,000, and so on. Collaborative grants support the publication of a co-authored or multi-authored books, born digital publications, themed issues of peer-reviewed journals, a series of peer-reviewed articles, or open access scholarly digital resources. All project outcomes must incorporate collaboration and interpretation to address significant humanities research questions. The maximum amount of funding for this grant is $250,000 for up to 3 years. Staff are happy to review optional drafts if they are submitted by the due date for both translation and scholarly editions, as well as collaborative research grants. So you can submit an early draft with the understanding that the given feedback does not necessarily reflect the panelists' evaluations. Archaeological and ethnographic field research offer awards to institutions and organizations conducting empirical field research to answer significant questions in the humanities. Archaeology and ethnography are important methodologies utilized by many disciplines across the humanities and social sciences that provide observational and experiential data on human history and culture. Funding amount is up to $150,000, and the grant can last from 4 months to 36 months to approximately 3 years. Staff regret that they cannot review drafts for this grant. Documenting Endangered Languages program is a partnership, as I mentioned earlier, between the NEH and the National Science Foundation, NSF. This is a different, this grant, the senior research grant, is different, separate from the individual fellowships for DLI-DEL program. So the grants actually support fieldwork, collaborative fieldwork, and other activities relevant to recording, documenting, and archiving endangered languages, including the preparation of lexicons, grammars, text samples, and databases. Funding should not exceed $450,000. And usually it lasts for the grant is available for 1 to 3 years. The applications for this program are submitted through NSF and not through NEH. So that's a major difference as well between the DLI-DEL senior research grants and DLI-DEL individual fellowships, which are submitted through NEH. Here is a recap of the institutional grants and research. The table tells you which program accepts optional drafts, the deadline to apply, and the website for each program.
Suha, we had a question from Catherine Rhodes. Do the scholarly editions, translations grants support work produced in languages other than English? For example, translation of an English text into another language?
Not to another language. Usually the translations are done from other languages into English. There are some exceptions, a few exceptions regarding editing, not translating, but editing texts of historical importance written in Spanish or Hispanic or Spanish, let's say, language. Indigenous language, not Spanish per se. So that's possible, and I've seen such grants. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any additional questions regarding to the edited or the grant, the institutional grants I can help with, or shall we wait until the end?
I think we can wait till the end, but I will encourage anybody, if you have questions at this point, to go ahead and put them in the chat or in the Q&A so that we don't lose them. So please do go ahead and put them in. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So how can you prepare a strong application? First, go to the landing page for the fellowship you're applying for. Read the notice of funding opportunity, and I'll give you a quick demonstration shortly. So read the notice of funding, the NOFO, carefully. This is an important document, actually. It's long. Usually it's like approximately 25 pages long. So take your time to decipher it and understand it. The document describes the program and its purpose in detail. It explains how to prepare and submit your materials. It indicates whether staff will read a draft application or not. It also lists prohibited project types and activities. These, you can see them under section D6 in the NOFO. It lists also the review criteria. That is how your application will be judged. On the web page also, you can you'll need to check also the posted webinar. You can check the posted webinar, posted transcripts and notes for the webinar. Check the FAQ page. I would suggest, when I was assistant professor, I actually studied the sample narratives and analyzed the way they are structured, so that that would be helpful. Make sure you emulate recent samples, because evaluating criteria and guidelines change periodically. And also check the list of funded projects. They give you an idea about the kind of successful applications and the focus of their analysis. So the layout for all fellowship and grant websites is similar. I am going to use the fellowship's website as an example. Here is the landing page for that program. On the right, you'll see basic information about the fellowship program, like the kind of research activities it funds, and the types of outcomes and results or expected results of research results for this program. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see when the new NOFO will be made available, or when it was made available. You'll also see the deadlines to submit applications and when applicants are notified of the results. Programs that accept optional drafts will also include the deadline to submit them. On the left, you'll see a link to the notice of funding, list of recently funded projects, the FAQ page, and the samples of application narratives. Also on this side, you'll find the link to the webinar and the transcripts. So now you have a better idea of how to navigate the landing page for each grant. I'm going to use the fellowships as an example for the criteria we use for evaluating applications, because other actually fellowships and programs have similar criteria. We ask our peer reviewers to consider these 5 evaluation criteria and only these criteria when evaluating applications. Need is not a criterion, and the pandemic is not a criterion. So the first one is significance. Let's say I'm working on a niche project, on a very specialized project. It's not enough to explain my project and give information about it and the methods, research methods I will use to produce a book. I need to go an extra step and explain how my project will benefit my discipline, will impact my discipline, and also how it can be linked to other disciplines in the humanities. So I need to explain its impact on the humanities at large. The second criterion is the quality or promise of quality of the applicant's work. As an interpreter of the humanities, I can demonstrate this as an applicant by my publication record, also by my training experience, and the way I'm presenting my argument regarding my project. Third criterion, the quality of the conception, definition, organization, and description of the project. Usually, we advise our applicants to write to a general audience. So the application should be free from academic jargon, specialized jargon, and if there are certain specific, limited terms that you're going to use, then please define them for your readers, because not all reviewers might be specialized in your field of study. The narrative should be clearly written, well organized, of course, and should present a good argument. The fourth criterion is the feasibility of the proposed plan of work. So if I'm asking for funding for 12 months, for example, I need to provide a benchmark and the expected outcomes for those deadlines. So after 3 months of the fellowship, I will write one chapter, or maybe one chapter and the draft of the second. In the next 3 months, I will submit an article for publication, or I will visit a library archive to do, to conduct research and so on. Number 4 is the feasibility of the proposed, sorry, we covered that, the feasibility of the proposed plan of work. The last criterion is the likelihood that the applicant will complete the project. And this would be demonstrated through my CV, my narrative, my academic research, activities, presentations at conferences, and also reference letters and writing sample. So the application narrative is really the core piece of your application. Preparing an excellent narrative is worth spending some time on, because this is where you describe your project and make your case for funding it. Remember that it should be free of technical terms and jargon, so that peer reviewers, especially the non-specialists, who will read your application in the later stages of the review process, can understand what your project is about and why it's important. The application guidelines instruct you to use certain subheadings in the narrative. The first one is called significance. This is where you answer the question about the intellectual merit of your proposed project. Explain your project's goals and expected impact in your field and also in the humanities at large. The next subheading is organization, concepts, and methods. This is where you explain the research design of your project. You can discuss the basic ideas and questions to be examined and how your research will address them. You should discuss the theoretical framework in relation to the research questions. Explain specific concepts and terminology here if that's necessary. The next subheading is competency, skills, and access. Here you will talk about your academic background and preparation. You don't need to repeat what's in your attached CV, but you need to explain what work that has led up to the project you are applying for. For example, it could be an expansion or revision of work you did for your PhD. And in this case, if it is a revision and expansion of your PhD, you need to provide details, clear details about the added material, added chapters, the archives you'll visit and utilize to expand on your PhD dissertation, and so on. So all those details are important, and the more details you provide, the better the chances would be, because you need to convince the panelists of the importance and significance of your project. And by panelists here, I mean reviewers. We call them at NEH panelists. And finally, final product and dissemination. What are the results of your book? It could be publications of a monograph, 1 or 2 articles leading to a book. an interpretive and a digital outcome, or a combination of these things. You might also explain for the dissemination part how publications are going to be distributed, or whether you will be talking about your work at one or more conferences. So general advice is to register early, to set up an account on grants.gov 1 week before the deadline, at least 1 week before the deadline is due. The application is complex. You need to fill out a form, and as all bureaucratic forms go, you know, you'd be actually looking, the form will set you on a journey to find out information you've never thought about. So try to register early as much as possible. Also, check the website, as I mentioned earlier, and converse, you know, meet with your colleagues, set up research circles and groups so that you'll discuss and evaluate each other's work. It's always it's always helpful to have a fresh pair of eyes looking at your work and providing you with feedback. Also, please consult with consult, as I mentioned, with your colleagues, and also you can email us at the NEH if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to help you. This is the general phone call for research, as well as the general mailbox for research. At the same time, at the end, you have my name here and my email, Qudsiya@NEH.gov, and my phone number 202-606-8593. I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple questions. One was from Matthew Schmader. Was the archaeological research only for multiple scholars?
Yes, it's for multiple scholars. However, for the fellowships, the individual fellowships, if you're preparing to write an article, well, not the summer fellowships, if you're preparing to write an article, then you can apply, you know, for a summer stipends, for example. You can also, if you think your budget, you can work and do research within the within the budget of $5,000 per month. You can apply for the individual fellowships and also awards for faculty. This is something you decide on. How large is your project? If it's too large and you're the only one you're responsible for carrying it, you know, successfully and finishing it, I'll suggest to divide it into accomplishable stages. So you can apply for one chunk to the faculty awards. For another chunk, you can apply for Mellon fellowships. If it has a digital component, then you can apply for the Mellon fellowships. If it is you know, if you want to write an article, then apply for the summer stipends. You'll get 2 months of funding. So divide it into manageable chunks, and you'll be able to do it on your own. You don't need to collaborate with other teams. But ultimately, this is your decision.
Thank you. Another question that came in is, are the faculty awards for HSIs limited to particular fields and topics, such as those directly related to the mission of the HSI?
Not necessarily. I've seen projects that cover English literature, English history, or British history, European studies, world studies, philosophy, religion, you name it. As long as you're affiliated with an HSI institution, with UNAM, then you qualify. They're not limited to Spanish. At the same time, faculty members who work with the community, train students, and want to revise or incorporate their the courses they teach with their research, this is also something possible. They can do that. There is lots of freedom actually in those in the way those awards are managed. So read the notice of funding, and yeah, I mean, many of your colleagues have actually applied and got the awards. So be positive. You'll do well. I mean, if you prepare well, you should be able to do well.
Thank you. Another question is, and people, please keep putting them in there and we'll capture them here. And if by chance we don't get to all of them today, we will follow up on them. Is the humanities initiatives at HSI's grant closed? On the website, it states the deadline for this cycle has passed, yet the application is available on March of 2019 of 2022, and the application is due in May of 2022.
That's true. Yeah, this cycle for this year, the deadline has passed, so you need to prepare your application for next year. And when you think about May 2022, we're thinking about what, like 7 months, approximately 7 months. Those months will go in a blink of an eye. Start preparing for your application right now. You have winter break, work on it. Don't spend all the time with the family, celebrating the holidays. Start working on the application, because it takes time actually to check with your colleagues and prepare, having a draft prepared so that you can submit it for feedback from the staff at NEH.
Thank you. And I second the don't wait. If you think you have something ready for the spring, you should be starting on it now. One more question here. What happens if the PI of an institutional grant changes institutions? Can the grant go with them, or does it stay with the institution?
This depends on the institution, the one who received the grant. If they are willing to pass the grant to another institution, then yeah, and the other institution agrees, then the grant is transferred amicably to the other institution. If this is not the case, if the institution who received the grant is not willing to transfer it, it's their responsibility to find another project director to replace the other one. And of course, NEH would have to approve the transfer. If the project director is not qualified to carry on with the project, then the institution will have to find a qualified one.
Okay. I will also say, if you want to ask a question, you don't want me to read it, you can raise your hand and Grace or somebody will unmute you so we can hear you as well. I have a question while other people are thinking. In your preliminary reviews, feedback on drafts, from your experience, what usually needs the most attention? What's sort of the biggest flaws that you see?
The significance is very important. Lots of people are busy with looking at the leaves of the tree, and they don't tell me which tree that they're looking at, or which forest they are in. So you need to move beyond your specific niche. Your research is important, definitely, but you need to articulate that importance to the humanities in general. And if it's not there, if it's not articulated, that's a major flaw. So please pay attention to that. At the same time, don't exaggerate the importance. Sometimes a few times the link, the applicants are trying to make links to current times, etc., which is nice, but then you can tell that the link is a little bit superfluous and it's not actually related to what they're doing. So be authentic at the same time. Try to explain the impact of your research at large.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of our participants or panelists for that matter? Does NEH provide feedback to unfunded projects? So if they don't get awarded?
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually that's and the feedback is helpful. So once the results are announced and you are informed of the result of your application, you can request what we call why not, why the application was not funded, and read the reviewers' feedback. And their feedback will help you revise and resubmit for the upcoming year. So it's not a wasted effort, actually. The feedback also will help you write a focus, a better book proposal, a better conference paper, will help you rethink of your project in larger terms and rethink about the impact of your project. Overall, it's very helpful. And also the applicants who receive funding, they also write to ask about the feedback, because it also helps them refocus, will help them find out about the aspects that they need to improve, or maybe the reviewers have provided the specific suggested specific books, sources they need to incorporate into their research. So all of this is very helpful.
But you do have to request the feedback. It's not automatic. Is that right?
Yes, you need to request it. It's not sent automatically. The announcement letter or email will include information about how to ask for feedback for those who have been awarded a grant, or those who did not.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Because I have one more, but I don't want to be the hog here. Okay. So thank you for that feedback. Can you say a little bit about NEH's review process?
Mm-hmm.
How do you identify panelists, and what do they go through?
Generally speaking, the panelists are, not all of them, depending on the program, are those who have received the grant. Could be NEH, it could be another type of grant. They are not at first. They are senior ranking colleagues. So they are generally speaking associate professors or professors. They have a wide range of interests. They're not necessarily specialists. They could be specializing in a certain field, but also they are interested in other fields. The applications are grouped together in panels under large subheadings. Because, for example, we have, for example, history panels, medieval sometimes panels, but this arrangement changes depending on the kind of applications we receive. And we place applications in the panel we think the panelists will be most sympathetic to. If an application does not fit, for example, it examines music, for example. If it does not fit within, let's say, the arts and music panel, or dance and arts and music panel, then we move it to a regional panel, such as, let's say, if there's an application that examines music in Asia, then we move it to an Asian panel, or a panel that has a large number of applications about Asia. Did I answer the question, or would you like more information?
No, I think, and so each application gets read by approximately how many?
At least three panelists.
Okay.
We have, yeah, at least 3 panelists. We usually recruit more for each panel or for each round of fellowships and grants, but at least 3, because some panelists might refuse it themselves if they have a conflict of interest. And by this, I mean, if they are, for example, affiliated with UNAM, if the panelist is affiliated with UNAM, then he or she cannot evaluate applications submitted by UNAM. And in that case, they have to recuse themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Complex system about avoiding conflicts of interest.
Yes. Anything else from our gathered many? Oh, here we go. There's one. Sorry. Can a scholar apply for individual grants and institutional grants as the PI in the same cycle?
No. I mean, you can apply, but if you get you cannot get you cannot have more than one grant. Well, you cannot have overlapping grants. Let's put it that way. So you would qualify to one of them, or maybe not, or maybe depending. But I would suggest to apply to as many grants as possible. Get feedback, and then the more eyes looking at your application, the better. The more feedback you get, the better. And then revise and resubmit. So yeah, you can participate in an institutional grant and also apply as an individual scholar.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. If anybody has any more, you can chime in now.
May I say something?
Sure.
I know from my experience when I was an assistant professor, we have so much phobia about being rejected. Based on what I've seen, the ones who are awarded, awarded grants are the ones who have developed. I mean, I haven't met them, but they seem to have developed thick skin. So do that, please. And they're the ones who have applied 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, sometimes 5 times, or even 6 times, until eventually they hit they get lucky and get the award. So don't be discouraged by rejection. Get the feedback and reapply, revise and reapply. And don't worry about, as I said, the more times you apply, the better your chances will be.
Is there any limit to how many times you can apply?
You can apply as many times as you want.
So persistence pays.
Yeah, and for example, for individual grants, fellowships, you can apply for summer stipends, get the feedback, and then revise your application and apply for fellowships or for faculty awards grants. And then again, you can revise and reapply and so on.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to take here we go. What do you see as the highest priorities currently for the DEL program?
We don't have priorities. I mean, it depends on the quality of the applications we receive. We don't have priorities for any of the grants or fellowships that are offered by the NEH. It depends really on the application. And the applications set the trend, the way the panels are formed, who are we recruiting, and so on. So the applicants guide us, and it's not the other way around. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to take just a minute to mention what we're cooking up in OVPR. which currently has an acronym of FRESH, so Facilitating Research Expansion in Social Sciences and Humanities. And the idea is that we're going to pilot this program over starting in 2022. So there'll be more information coming out in the next couple months. And the idea is that we'll be inviting faculty who are interested to participate in a cohort program that will provide an opportunity for developing proposals for external funding with support from a variety of sources, giving background information as well as peer support, peer mentoring, review of peer writing, and as well as expertise from people who have received funding in the applicable field. And so just keep an eye out for that. And if you have a particular interest and want to be sure you don't miss out, feel free to send an email to frdo@unm.edu. I'm giving somebody else's email here. Because we will be sending information out, but as we all know, not everybody sees every email that goes out. So we are excited about this as an opportunity to really thank you, Ellen, in the chat. We are excited. That's the web. That's even better. That's the email. To do some work to support humanities and social science scholars on campus. And I think NEH is one great avenue that we'll be pursuing and encouraging you to pursue. So with that, Ellen, did you want to add anything?
Not really, but I would like to say thank you again, and that we hope that you will be seeing many more applications from UNM faculty over the next couple of years. So
we did. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mary Jo, I think I interrupted you.
Well, I was just going to say, we just had one more question that scooted in from Catherine. For DEL, DIL, how is the notion of endangered measured?
There are two sources. One of them is mentioned on the NSF website, and also there's a document prepared by UNESCO. It's measured by the number of remaining native speakers who have the language as their native language and speak it fluently. The generational transmission of the language, is it passed on to the children, or are the younger generations uninterested in learning it? The influence of the media, modern media, on the community, and other, let's say, factors. So, and the language that does not necessarily have to be endangered or threatened. I've seen some applications that deal with dormant languages that have recently disappeared, but then at the same time, there are still sufficient documents and evidence to provide, to analyze and study. So I hope that those answers are, well, those options are helpful. And if you like, Catherine, if you have additional questions or need more details, please let me know, and I'll be happy to help you with that.
Thank you. And I think with that, I think we will wrap it up today. I want to thank you very much, Suha, for your time and for your insights and for your willingness to help us going forward. And hope to see lots of applications coming your way.
Thank you so much for everyone. And it's a pleasure to meet you all. And thank you for giving me the chance to talk to you. And it's been a pleasure meeting you all. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll be happy to answer them. And you can also contact me by phone. By all means, I'll be very happy to help you. And good luck to everyone. Wonderful plans, actually. So this is all exciting.
Thank you so much. And lots of thank yous in the chat to you as well. Have a great afternoon, evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.